What is intimacy avoidance? So many people struggle with this, so stay tuned and watch this. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. And if you have a question, put it in the box. We will get back to you as soon as possible, so stay with us. What is intimacy avoidance? Well, it sounds kind of simple, right? It's avoiding intimacy. But there are so many different ways of doing that. One of the ways is, people who stay single for long periods of time, they might be avoiding intimacy because they're not even trying to date. They're not trying to be in relationships. They might have, little things they do here and there, are very short-term relationships, but it's like they have a real pattern of avoiding even trying getting in a relationship. Of course, that's one way to avoid intimacy, by not even getting into a relationship, because people are pain and, maybe you've been hurt before, or you don't trust people, or it's not safe, or you don't feel safe, or you don't want to have sex. So, hey, I don't want to have sex, so I don't want to get in a relationship because they're going to want sex. So you might be avoiding sex, and that's why you're avoiding intimacy. It's really hard to say, right? But you would know in your heart maybe why you are avoiding intimacy. Another reason you could be avoiding intimacy could be inside of a relationship. You did the fun thing, you got, you charmed someone into marrying you, but now you're not really into connecting. Your spouse complains about feeling like a roommate. They feel alone, disconnected. Maybe sex is dwindling, and you may be suffering from what we call intimacy anorexia. So let me walk through what that is, because that might be why you're avoiding intimacy. If it is, here's the good news. There's actually help, support, books, support groups, all kinds of stuff to help you with this. Now, if you're married to someone like this, you feel very married and alone. We have research on that. There's materials on that. And there's help for you to heal regardless of whether they decide to be intimate with you or not. What intimacy anorexia is, it is an active pattern where you actively withhold intimacy spiritually, emotionally, and sexually with your spouse. Now, you might be having sex, but if you are, you're being disconnected, but you probably are avoiding that. Now, here's the characteristics. So, get your pencil out, and if you got several of these, you might want to consider this is what's going on. If you're married to this person, you're definitely going to want to Google intimacy anorexia, because it's a huge problem and so many people suffer that, and it feels like they're avoiding intimacy with you. Number one, you're too busy for your spouse. Okay, they're too busy for you if you are the spouse. They're not too busy for other people or other things or activities, whether it's a spiritual community, political community, a neighborhood community. They got time for everybody but the spouse. They blame the spouse for all the problems in the relationship. Rarely will this person say, without being coerced, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Okay, they blame you. You're the problem. I wouldn't do that if you wouldn't have said this or done that, or be this way or do that. Okay, so they blame you for all the problems in the relationship. So if you're an intimacy anorexic, you're blaming your spouse. They withhold love, especially the way you like to be loved. If your spouse likes gifts, you don't buy gifts. If they like time, you don't give them time. If they like touch, you don't give them touch. You know how they want to be loved. They've told you how to love them, and you simply refuse to do it. Unless you're in trouble, then you can show up, which means you can do it, you just choose not to do it. Praise, limiting withholding praise. You might tell other people that your spouse is wonderful, but you don't just genuinely praise them on a regular basis when you're at home alone. They withhold spiritually, even if they're leaders in a spiritual community. I've had medicine men, rabbis, and pastors refuse to pray with their spouse, to connect with them. They don't want to get into spiritual connectivity with their spouse. They limit or withhold sex, or they're disconnected during sex. Maybe they never ask for sex. If you're the anorexic, you don't ask for sex. Maybe you'll respond, but kind of begrudgingly, be disconnected during sex or uninterested to make it painful for the other person. They will sometimes be in a fantasy world, so they're not connected to you during the sex act, and you feel alone. Their eyes are closed. If you're married to them, you feel alone or empty after sex. That's really a sad thing. They're unwilling or unable to share their feelings with you. If we get into an emotional conversation, they're going to get overwhelmed and shut down pretty quickly. They use anger or silence as a way to control the relationship. They won't talk to you for days, or they'll blow up and push you away. and that kind of thing can happen. They have ongoing or ungrounded criticism of you, and sometimes it's constant. Sometimes they control or shame around money issues, but generally speaking, if you are married to an intimacy anorexic, you feel like a roommate. If you are the intimacy anorexic, you have been told, I feel alone, I don't feel important, you don't value me, we don't connect, we're just roommates, I'm just raising your kids. You've had these kind of conversations, you might be avoiding intimacy. Now, you also could be avoiding intimacy because you have a secret. It could be an addiction like pornography. You could be having an affair. You could be doing something that you know is not acceptable to your spouse, and you could be avoiding it that way. And that's another thing. Even if you're single and you're up to some things that you know that wouldn't work in a relationship, you might actually be protecting an addiction. And it could be even alcohol or drugs or work addiction. And you know you just don't want to give it up, so you're going to avoid intimacy with someone because you don't want anyone telling you what to do. You don't want anyone telling you that you can't have your addiction. Your addiction's your blankie, and you don't want to do life without blankie. And so you don't want anyone doing that. Another reason you could have challenges and avoid intimacy is you have a history of sexual abuse or rapes or you've done things that you know that you're truly ashamed of. And you don't want someone to know you that way. You don't want someone to know that you did X, Y, or Z, or that X, Y, or Z happened to you. You might have felt weak or out of control or damaged or broken goods. And if you really told them, they wouldn't love you, and you just don't want to go down that road. So maybe you just avoid relationships altogether, or you avoid the relationship you're married to because you don't only want it to go so deep, and so you avoid intimacy. And you're on your cell phone all the time, or you're on Facebook, or you're watching TV, and you're avoiding intimacy. When was the last time your spouse felt like you were a lover to them, not just sexually, but romantically? You sent them a note, you bought them a card, you rubbed their feet without sexual intent. You were really showing up for them, right? And if you're not, okay, another way you can avoid intimacy, simply make it so that it's painful to be in a relationship with you. You don't keep your word. You say you're going to do something, you don't follow through again and again. That makes it painful to be in a relationship with you, and that can be you setting up not having intimacy. Lying, oh my gosh, lying so destructive in a relationship. Even small lies, it can continually send pain into the relationship, so that person doesn't want to really be with you, and that's kind of what you really want, and so you are setting it up to avoid intimacy. And so if you're in a pattern of avoiding intimacy, first of all, you're not alone. There's millions of people doing that. And if you're suffering from someone who's avoiding intimacy, there is help. The married and alone stuff we have on our website. You can go to partnerbetrayaltrauma.org if you are a partner of one of these people. If you are that person, intimacyanorexia.com can probably help you quite a bit. There's a lot of resources there. We have YouTubes on all these topics. And you want to find out what's going on. Okay, if you're in a sexless marriage, we have a DVD called Sexless and Married. That can be helpful for you because it outlines about, I think 6 or 8 different reasons why that could be happening to you. But you don't have to stay avoiding intimacy. And you can heal if you're in a relationship with someone who is doing this to you. So whatever it is, take your first step. You can call my office, 719-278-3708. And they can maybe give you information on products or services, phone counseling, or groups, or even come and do an intensive here in Colorado Springs. You can be connected if you're both willing to work through the process. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. If you haven't sent us a question, you have one, go ahead and put it in the box. We will get back to you as soon as possible. Until next time, thank you very much.